As this is the last full week of the Reedsy Masterclass, it's time to start looking at how to wrap everything up. Now, there's a lot of ways that you can end a book, and it pretty much depends on how the book progresses in the middle. And it also depends on how you started the book in the first place. But as long as you provide a satisfactory end, that's all that matters. Well, I'm Mike with WriterSanctuary, and in this last full week of Reedsy's Masterclass of how to write a novel, Tom Bromley shares ideas and tactics to wrap things up in a nice way. On day one, Tom Bromley went over resolutions and ways to wrap up the story. It's about resolving the dramatic tension and creating balance as opposed to how the story began. Now, resolutions really depend on the writer, and there is no right or wrong answer to setting up that ending. It all comes down to what you think is right for the story and what feels more comfortable for you. My endings are always uncertain and are often open-ended. That gives me the chance to continue with a sequel should I decide to continue. Well, with the exception of the Witchem series, that one was a plan to have an open endings to usher in the next book. But one of the tenets of writing a good novel, though, comes down to the characters being different at the end than they were from the very beginning. It's called creating a good character arc. Say what you want about my lack of description of the story, there's no denying that my characters are often far different by the end. Now, day two was about bookending. Now, this is a practice that means the beginning and the end should match up in some form, such as bookends on a bookshelf. This can be done with plot, theme, details, or images. Now, it doesn't work the same for every novel, but it can be an effective method if it can be worked in. For one thing, it helps you focus on the plotting of the book. Ask yourself, have you concluded what you set up in the very beginning? Bookending can be done within a single line of dialogue or detail. And some of the examples Tom Bromley shared demonstrated this exceptionally well. The scenes can also bookend the story through similarities or by being mirrored, which means a similar scene, only opposite. And lastly, bookending can be done to show no underlying changes have actually been made outside of that of the character. I can't really do bookending justice in this video without divulging the entire course. The bottom line is that Tom shows some excellent examples of how to do this properly. On day three, Tom provided examples of how imagery is used to bring emphasis to the end of a story. Now, imagery is often used to begin and end scenes themselves. Using it at the end of the book can highlight the story that it came before it. The key to using imagery properly to end the book is to make it grand, impactful, and memorable. Let the readers use their imagination as it helps make for an active experience rather than a passive one. If you can create an ending image in the mind's eye, it echoes and resonates all of the story that came before it. The idea is to create an emphasis while writing a memorable moment. Now, Tom demonstrated how this was done through Lord of the Flies, as well as a few other books that indeed offered a memorable moment. Now, the examples for day four involved movement and how it plays a significant role of a book from start to finish. In this case, it's about showing the characters change by the end. One door closes while another one opens, both literally and figuratively. However, not every book needs movement. It all depends on the story you're writing and whether movement can contribute to a memorable ending. Now, movement in imagery can be delivered as a metaphor for a character's change. For instance, a change in the seasons from autumn to fall can accentuate a character's change by the end. An example of a literal movement could be at the end of a fantasy novel when the hero returns home after a long quest, perhaps a bit wiser, or maybe even having a significant adjustment to their beliefs and behaviors. Another example of changing would be, say that you had a character at the very beginning of the book who had no intention of falling in love and winds up falling head over heels for a main character by the end. That's a trope that's probably been done to death. But it's effective nonetheless. Now, day five was all about creating possibilities at the end of the novel. Now, Tom Bromley touched on how much resolution is needed to satisfy everyone. He, like myself, understands that you can't please 100% of the people 100% of the time. The best resolution for your book is one of which you're satisfied. In other words, please yourself before you try to please others. Now, day five was all about finding a middle ground, so to speak, the possibilities of the ending. It's not a fully closed door or a fully opened door, but more something left slightly ajar. The possibilities give the reader the idea of potential endings while letting their imaginations fill in the blanks. Now, I often leave things slightly open-ended, mostly because I'm not sure if I want to turn it into a series or not. I might just want to write a follow-up, depending on how well the story performs. Now, there is something to be said about delivering hope and possibility for the character's future without planning a second novel, though. Some of my favorite endings in books and movies were slightly left open to interpretation of the future. Now, the author interviews this week were all about endings and how different authors have widely varying methods of wrapping up their novels. Some use small details as bookends, while others try not to get too committed to either the start or the ending of their books. That's mostly because things can change wildly depending on how the rest of the story unfolds. Now, I actually wrote the ending of Kingmaker before I even started chapter 1, but that's because I knew exactly how I wanted the book to end. Of course, I had to go back and make quite a few changes because of the events that happened in the middle of the book, and it kind of gives me goals of where I need to get to the story. Now, I don't do this everything I write, however. It all depends on the basis of the idea of the story itself. But with this being the final full week of the masterclass, I am starting to think about my future and how everything will click into place. I've learned a lot over the past few months, and it's going to feel weird not jumping into my morning routine and watching the next video and going over the materials for the day. But after next week, I'll be released back into the wild with a new sense of what I'm doing, much to the delight of my readers. I hope. But if you enjoyed the video, hit the like button. For more videos about self-publishing, freelance writing, blogging, or anything else I cover, hit the subscribe button. Don't forget to hit the notification bell. I think that's going to do it for me today. I got to get ready for an interview tonight, and I will see you next time.